the oldest datings in our archaeology are definitely wrong. We learned today that many ruins are much older than we thought before. In the meantime, we have ruins who date back to 22,000 years BC. Something in our past is completely wrong. Now, 4,300 years ago, lived in the Sumerian city of Nippur a lady with the name Enchedwana. Enchedwana was the highest priest and the daughter of the Sumerian king Sargon I. Therefore, Enchedwana was able to write, and she wrote 80 Sumerian tablets, which our archaeologists today name the Holy Hymns of Enchedwana. In our days, these old texts were translated by the German Sumerologist Dr. Hermann Burgard. And this specialist, one of the few specialists of the world who can translate Sumerian cuneiform, was absolutely fascinated by the writings of Enchedwana. She definitely writes about so-called dingirs, and dingirs were flying machines. You can compare the dingirs to the vimanas in ancient India, or to the flying chariot in the Ethiopian Book of the Kings, the so-called Kebra Negrest, or to the Egyptian flying winged sun gods, etc., etc. 40 years ago, the Sumerologists believed that the writings of Enchedwana has to do something with the folklore of the gods. Maybe something with the moon, with the sun, with the lightning, or a storm. In the meantime, Dr. Hermann Burgard clearly found out that Enchedwana in reality was writing about space stations in orbit, about machines coming down from these space stations. And here on Earth, these flying machines, today we would say space shuttles, were refueled with the mixture of different oils and carbides. By the way, a similar composition of liquids and carbide as we find them in old Indian texts. Enchedwana also writes about a terrible noise which these flying machines made, comparable to Ezekiel in the Bible. He speaks about the thundering of a waterfall. Finally, Enchedwana in her text made clear that some of the humans were used as slaves for the so-called gods, except the chosen ones. These chosen ones were a group of humans which stand under the command of the extraterrestrials. The king and the people all work for the so-called gods. In return, the gods helped the men against their enemy. My friend Zachariah Sitchin, who died, he has written a book with the title The 12th Planet, and he has translated some of the Sumerian texts. And Zachariah Sitchin, in many points, I absolutely agree with him. But concerning the 12th planet, I do not agree with him. In the text of Enchedwana, it is clear there was not a 12th planet in our solar system, but there was a gigantic mother spaceship. That's the misunderstanding. Now, how can we prove all these things? Here we have Sumerian texts. All India has a fantastic literature. The Mahabharata has, in original, more than 1,000 pages. The 5th book of the Mahabharata is called the Mausala Purva. In the Museum of Guatemala, you find many of these gods. They all have helmets and masks on their noses. That corresponds to their holy writings. The gods are described like this. Far away again, in Japan, Japanese Stone Age, they represent these gods in that form. They call it the Dogu gods. They were holy. They were standing on altars. But in Japanese Stone Age, nobody knows something about glasses. So, how did they copy? What did they see? And the process I'm doing here, it's a worldwide phenomenon. The cave paintings are worldwide. These figures are worldwide. But our ancestors had no contact together. They have all seen something similar. In Mexico and the Caribbean, near the Caribbean Sea, is a place called Villahermosa. There you see this god. He has a helmet on. In modern eyes, you can say he has a microphone before his light lips. His hands are pointing downward to the planet Earth. His legs are up there. A descending god. Far away from here, from Mexico, in the upper Amazon River, in today's Brazil, there is a tribe called the Kayapos. The Kayapos have every year, still now, every year a festivity where they make a man out of his straw garments. They call this figure Dete Kororochi. He has no opening for mouth, eyes, ears. He has a weapon in his hands. And then they explain his story. One day, long time ago among the ancestors, the natives hear the noise in the sky. Then an object fell down from the sky. They were all afraid. They ran into their caves. And after a few hours it became quiet. So they went out, and in the center of the village, this strange being was standing. It took only 3 days, and the stranger learned the language of the natives. He said, "My name is Bete Korodosh," which means in the language of the Kayapo, "I'm coming from the sky." He teach them in astronomy. He teach them in several belongings. Not only astronomy, also in agriculture. And one day he left them with the promise, in a far future, he will return to this planet again. So that the people would never forget the return of his teacher. They make this dance still today, every year, in honor of the teacher from the sky. Inscriptions. In 1952, Professor Dr. Rutz was up there, and he found on the bottom, he found a groove. So he was curious, and they chiseled out a large stone. Inside the pyramid, a staircase was open. But in 1952, this staircase was completely full with stones. You could not go down there. It took 3 years before all the stones were taken out. The archaeologists finally went 7 meters under the pyramid, and they stood for a great stone in the form of a triangle. They opened it very roughly, that's why some part is broken. Of course, in 1952 there was no grid here. This was made later against the tourists. And the researchers entered into a room. The room under the pyramid is 9 meters long, 4 meters large, 7 meters high, and was covered completely with that stone here. It's a big and large stone block, The stone block is 3.80 meters long and 2.20 meters large. It weighs roughly 8 tons. And here you see something sensational. You see something like a frame going all around. In the center of the frame there is a man sitting, bending forward, almost like a racing motorcyclist. He has some sort of mask on his nose. And he definitely uses his 2 hands to manipulate controls. You see the upper hand, he's using this knot here. From the lower hand, you see the 4 fingers here of the back. He's turning something up. He's winding something up. He's sitting on a chair. And outside of the frame, you see something like a linking lamp. Now this was my interpretation, which I made 50 years ago in my book, Relazione del futuro. Then the critics came. The archaeological community accused me and said, all my inspirations are completely wrong. This is simply Pakal. Pakal was the second last ruler of Palenque. I fully agree, it is Pakal. Then the critics say, Pakal here, this is the cross of life or the tree of life. Pakal is sitting in the open mouth. This, the open mouth of a mythological monster. The specialists in archaeology, they saw some quetzal bird. Or what I described at the end here, something like a linking flag there. The archaeologists said this is simply the stylized hairs of the beard of the weather god. Fantastic interpretation. Then, in our days, 3 years ago, 2 new professors in archaeology studied this tombstone. Their name is David and George Stewart. They is father and son, David and George Stewart, from the University of Texas in Austin. They are the best translators today of the Maya writings. And they came out now with a complete new interpretation of this thing. They said, on the 3rd tablet of the Temple of Inscription, there is a date connected with Pakal. The date gives the figure 1,247,654, back in time. Another date says that Pakal will return to this planet Earth after 4,000 years. There is, according to the modern interpretation, no open mouth of the mythological monster. There is no tree of life or cross of life. There is no stylized hair of the beard. They say it at all, the whole plate, completely, has to do with the universe. Yes, it is Pakal, the second ruler of Palenque. But Pakal is flying out, away from the earth.